I'm Alan Jones, and I am an audio recordist, phonographer, and my background is in acoustics, specifically underwater, undersea acoustics. And those interests and that career field, which I worked in for many years, has spread into a new passion, and that is what a lot of people call acoustic ecology. I'm out here with Claire at the Curley Creek Reserve. It's one of the many enormous tracts of lands that is taken care of by the Great Peninsula Conservancy. They are the stewards, custodians, and the overall oversight for pristine areas throughout the county and greater peninsula. Our interest here today is the salmon that are just beginning to run out here in Curley Creek. We even had one sighting of one dead salmon. The salmon actually come out here to do their spawning and also to die, most of them. And the fact that we've only seen one of them out here means that it's pretty early in the season. What I'm interested in is essentially what we can call the acoustic footprint of a given area. If you begin to zoom in on any place within that footprint that you're trying to capture, you can get what we can call an acoustic fingerprint. So a macro area and then very specific sounds that are unique to a specific site within a greater area. I've been coming out and surveying this creek for the last couple of months to prepare for what we're doing today, to get the acoustic fingerprint of this creek, which includes just the local ecology and how the different beings and critters and flora out here all interact with one another, and to capture those things acoustically. You're more likely to see photography, videography of those things, but the acoustics of a given area is also very important. It can tell us a lot of things. We have an array of mics that are staged right in this area about 50 yards from me across the creek. I have hydrophones that have been suspended in water to capture the sounds of salmon going by, maybe salmon sounds, in addition to outdoor open mics that are capturing at the same time some of the sounds that you're hearing in and around the area. Over time, you may be able to collect enough information to acoustically capture what makes a salmon freak out, right? So what makes a salmon go nuts? Often it's going to be something that's happening in the water column or another salmon, but other times there's a predator. The first part of the project was to capture video and audio with a shotgun microphone and a suspended hydrophone within the water column in a dark area under a really thick log. And to me, that's interesting because salmon tend to like really dark places. Their eyesight can sense changes in light. So if they're hanging out, resting in a given spot, they're in a very key spot optically to sense changes around them in the environment, which could alert them to a predator, such as a man with microphones creeping around and dropping hydrophones in the water. We're also capturing more of an open above water array of sounds, including the salmon splashing around, which you may be able to hear over there in the background. What I love about the concept and the science of acoustic ecology is that it blends both art, activism, awareness, and science all together in the interest of ecology management, in conservation, in preservation, and primarily to capture what many of us, whether you're a scientist or not, feel is a waning acoustic fingerprint that is coming about not just by things like climate change, which are having a dramatic impact on a lot of things, but also things like consumerism and capitalism and the way that the expansion of business and fortifying land that should otherwise be kept pristine, how that can affect local ecologies miles and miles out. So we weren't able to do this kind of thing 80 years ago in such a focused fashion where we're able to come to a place like Curley Creek, capture all of the sounds in a given month under certain weather conditions, and have that in our pockets as photographs. And if need be, do some comparative analysis maybe 30 years from now after they build an Amazon warehouse somewhere out here nearby in Port Orchard. How does that change the environment, the local ecology? And many of those data points can be picked up by studying the occurrences that happen acoustically in these areas. One of the objectives of meaningful acoustic ecology, someone like the neighbors coming out here and going, oh, it's wonderful, you know, it's hardly changed. You know, that's a good feeling. And it's also a good feeling for us as a community to see the outcomes of preservation, number one. But going back to the photograph analogy, there are places where you and I grew up, right, in separate areas that we can, in advance of revisiting some of those places, get really excited about. But then upon visiting, the nostalgia comes back, but there's also a strip mall where there used to be only a stable and, you know, a long stretch of country road. We miss those things, you know, we miss those things in our ears and as a part of the environment, you know, that make up a certain bit of, you know, our own individual chapters in our lives. Preservation and conservation, and specifically these different manners of documenting, be it acoustic or photography, are so important, not just to bring those things to others, but also to maybe rally a growing group of people that can actually work together and do something about pumping the brakes, you know, on expansion and building and in and near wetlands and environments such as that. I wouldn't say that it does so deliberately or consciously. It certainly feeds into an interest in listening, or what they call causal listening. The fact that so many environmental sounds have a range of different tempos to them, different timbres. When you get up close to the some of the origins of these sounds, you stumble across a great amount of detail. And that is in the composing world, when you are in the workshop and in the laboratory, putting pencil to paper and sitting at whatever instrument, you're looking for the same things that are interesting and things that blend together. And it doesn't even have to be in traditional ways. There can be atonality, and there's atonality all throughout, you know, this area that we're sitting in right now. The processes for me in the capturing of these sounds and setting out to do it are so very similar, though, that it even influences the way that I make music. There's often a tremendous amount of fusion of site-specific recordings, or those little lines in the fingerprints that will make it into my own music, to the point that it's even foreground in at least half of what I do, whereas other, you know, conventional instrumentation just lies just under the surface. So I think there's a kinship between those who love music and like to listen to it for their own reasons and investigate and dig deeper into the how and the fascination of it. Very much the same in the field of acoustic ecology, where what we are trying to do is raise activism and raise awareness about the things that are happening throughout the world. And when done really interestingly, it can be done in a very artistic way. And there are many practitioners that are doing exactly that, coming at it from an aesthetic field first, and then collaborating with the science community, where I'm a little different. I come at it through purely a scientific kind of interest, but that is just so at play with this other aspect of my interest, which is music and composition. What I'm doing here at Curley Creek Tyner Preserve is it's a natural extension of things that I've been doing for years. Some of the most recent projects that I've completed, one was the capture of a ferry underwater as it changed its positioning, as it shifted from its main propulsion to its positioning propulsion, and that utter pollution, noise pollution to be specific, that stems from ferry traffic and merchant traffic in a given area, and the effect that has on, well, in this area it was the gray whale community that hangs out in the Sound and up and about the Straits Wannafuke and Port Townsend. Another one very similar, but this time focusing on humans and plight, was the recording of many different physical surfaces of the Japanese internment memorial over in Bainbridge Island. And that was a deeply important project to me because it is something I'd been thinking about for many years. But I think the one that I'm most excited about is actually, doing this here with the with GPC, and the partnering that we have ahead of us after salmon season to go tackle something else, to go get in interstitial waterways, to go into riparian areas and wetlands, all the way out to dream project before and after acoustic footprint involving dam removals. I also want to emphasize that you do not need a degree or any kind of super fancy equipment to go out and do this type of thing. And in fact, it's very important for amateur recordists to get out there and do exactly this with ideas and things that make you tick, and get out there and record them and share them with the community. And it may even go so far as to be a benefit as a data source to the science and educational community.